8 is D. Tolerance has no effect.
But A is the opposite.
Right, but it actually has no effect. Yep. It's D. Yep. So tolerance has no effect on a person's intoxication rate. It just impacts how well they show if they're intoxicated. So actually,
Oh, okay.
so I said strength. 8. So tolerance has no impact. Yes. But as long as you guys are documenting. Yeah, so you guys should be doing everything in your power. Obviously, I don't mean like going and tackling someone, but everything. I have to remember, like, what's the question?
What about 15? Yeah, there's this, the other room is there. I'm not flexible.
So where are they going now? On the east side? So you get like one row? And then they drop it back up and they paint it straight. And it's just run a spot because that stuff is short. And that in there, yeah, it's that kind of problem. Like it was basically a bond. Pipelines working on pipelines. Yeah, you go across the road and you go right up against that hard road, lighted, and then you have this where the washouts fit. You fix the right to wash out. So we're going to pipe the box. But if you go up and over to Cross Street, it takes you yeah, Andrew Drive. Here, Andrew Drive. I don't know if that's actually Andrew Drive, but that neighborhood. So it's right in. Come on, man. Yeah, we're sitting right there. Yeah. There's the castle. There's Colton. Go back to the next. Go up, right? Up. The other way. Go back to your one. Oh, this one. Yeah, that one right in there. As you go all the way up to that. It's right there. Yeah, it's all washed out. They don't really washed out. It's just not all starting to show. I'm like, come on. Yeah. They don't really have the problems once they have it. Well, then, I talked to Patrick about that because, we went up there and right up here after the fire, it was all crushed up. They did that. They changed it from that to down here. We did, like, right here, trail there. I'm pushing my kids to do a little longer thing. College is great. They love the trails. So 2 hours of raking and I wouldn't say necessarily it's washed out because you got that little slow hill that it goes. Anthony Stewart? Anthony Stewart?
I think Anthony is, but I haven't heard of it. There's 3 slots there. Because Deb's down.
Julie and Joe.
And Julie and Joe.
Deb was from.
Yeah. I know. And I've been like, she said, as soon as you're something electrical, I'm like, this is ridiculous. This guy, this is not even called local.
My signature got worse over time, but ACC certainly not helped it.
This is kind of real. And she says, no, everybody else is like, it doesn't obligate you to anything. It just says you sign it.
So this is,
We'll get into it.
right.
Wait for the meeting, wait for the meeting.
Okay.
Jeez, knock it all in arms, you know, we have infield people for sure. We keep it all up.
Right, so we have to. We can start. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
So last weekend.
Oh, I didn't know.
Okay.
So you said you wouldn't be here, might call him.
I would try and call in, but I got out of my
Yeah, I
meeting,
thought that
so
was
I'm good.
all right.
I try and play it month by month.
Okay, so let's call to order this meeting in PROSTAC, August 17, 2016. Corbett is not present. No public present, so we'll skip public comment. So let's move on to item 1, the Boulder County Open Space and Trail recommendation. So that's the sheet in front of you. So we discussed this last month. We had essentially established what we wanted to move forward with. I sent that to OSAC, hoping that they would discuss it at their meeting last week. They not only discussed it, they made a recommendation already. So they made a recommendation very similar to what you see in front of you, except I made a couple changes because I feel like, based on our discussions last month, there were a few things that we wanted to see that OSAC did not include. Looking at the open space acquisitions, Zaharias was number 2 in the previous recommendation. We had discussed removing Zaharias altogether because of the development proposal that's pretty far along with the board. OSAC didn't want to remove it entirely until, basically the development is a done deal. They want to keep it on the county's radar. So they left it as number 2. I don't see any reason why it should be our number 2 priority if it's essentially not going to happen. So if we're going to make a recommendation that includes Zaharias, I thought we should bump it down to number 3. And then it has the comment, which OSAC had as well, that it's under, it's under proposal for development. For the trail projects, I didn't change anything. This is OSAC's recommendation for number 1, the connection from the Davidson Mesa underpass to the Mayhofer Single Tree Trail. Didn't change anything there. Number 2 is the Shanshan property connection to the Meadowlark Trail. I added the last sentence, which is that the committee, being PROSTAC, feels that although the trail connection is a priority, the trailhead needs further analysis due to traffic access concerns. We've talked about this several times. I think it's important to include that in the recommendation. Number 3, improving the surface of the Colton Trail. That's unchanged from OSAC's language. Same with number 4, the Mayhofer Single Tree Trail and Coal Creek Regional Trail connection. That's unchanged. The Colton Trail south to 128, again unchanged. Number 6, the Meadowlark Trail. That's basically that connection from the gate that everyone hops. That's unchanged from OSAC's recommendation. The what I left off was they had a number 7, which was, and I'm trying to remember now what the trail was, but there was the, I think the Frico Ditch Trail that, that the county said in the previous request that they wouldn't entertain, that it was like against their land management plan. We wanted to remove that. OSAC wanted to like keep it on the list, saying we want to remove it, but we want record that it's being removed. I think our meeting notes cover that pretty clearly. So I don't see why that should be attached to a recommendation that goes forward to the county. Why would we be saying we're removing a recommendation? Don't consider this. I mean, it doesn't, I just want to remove it altogether. So we can either just agree with OSAC's recommendation altogether, or we could go slightly amended with the version we see in front of us. Any other thought? I mean, anyone's thoughts on that?
I'm just trying to keep up with where the trails are.
Don't worry about where the trails are, Corey. You're so
I know we've talked about them so many times, so it's just a matter of finding which ones again. And
Right.
like you said, they're pretty much all what we've discussed before.
So what are you trying to locate?
No, I was just going through. I've followed so far. I think
You gotta
I'm there on all of them.
commit these trails to memory.
I mean, I think what you put together is good. I definitely agree that Zaharias should not be second. And
How close is Zaharias, do we know?
It's pretty close.
yeah, I mean, I've seen it, a couple of times. come up, yeah.
They've already had 2 proposals put in front of the board. The last one had 2 or 3 versions. The board seemed pretty happy with one of those versions. So I think they have a development plan coming forward pretty quickly.
Yeah.
That's the townhomes.
Yeah.
Slash condo slash.
Yeah.
What's going to start as apartments and then be
Apartments, yeah.
sold off as townhomes.
Yeah.
That's a bummer.
I mean, the one thing there, which is, and this is the same with the Anderson property, there's a proposal out there for the Anderson property, wasn't as well received by the board, but if that were to go forward, in both of these properties, the one thing that the board can and probably will do is, make it as part of the development that they have, these open space areas. So, like with Zaharias, the one thing that the board said early on was they wanted, as much buffer zone between the development and Hodgkin Harris Reservoir as much as possible. And the developer came back, they made that happen. They increased that area in the second proposal, and the board seemed to be, happy with that. But any type of, trail in there in the buffer zone, I mean, that the board's going to push that be done by the developer. So, we wouldn't really need to be going to the county
Right.
for
Well, I
help
agree.
in
I
building
agree
a
with
trail
you.
or
I think
anything
it's
like
perfect.
that.
Yeah, no, it should definitely not be second.
So,
After finding them all, I agree.
okay.
Well, I mean, we've talked about them before. I just every
Yeah,
time when you
it-
see a different piece of paper. I'm
It's
just
everything we
wondering.
talked about last month. It's just that, OSAC made a very detailed recommendation. So we'll pretty much second their recommendation with these few changes. So if, I'll make a motion that we recommend the Boulder County Open Space and Trail request, as outlined on this sheet of paper. Do I have a second?
Second.
Yeah, I don't think we should mention open space.
Second.
This is our recommendation because it's slightly different, and the board will have to decide how they want to put forward to the county, because they'll get 2 very similar variations, but variations nonetheless
Sure.
of a recommendation to put forward to the county. So any more discussion? All right, all in favor?
Good.
Aye.
Favor.
All in favor? All right. So passes unanimously. So Allison, if you could just include what's on the page. I emailed you the file, so you can save your typing.
Oh, yeah, I was just doing my general.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't expect you to have to retype this whole sheet. All right, so moving on to discussion item number 2. We had some discussion previously about wanting to do a more involved volunteer effort to do some trail maintenance on the existing Coyote Ridge trail system. This would not be the right now there's a proposal out there for the new trail that would connect from Pirate Park to the existing Coyote Ridge. That would not be what we're talking about right now. We're talking about the existing official and social trail network up there, basically doing some cleanup work because of, I mean, it hasn't been maintained in.
Official and or official?
No, I think what the general.
You said and social.
Yeah, so the general consensus, I think, coming out of the public engagement meeting that we had previously on Coyote Ridge was that we want to bring in some of those social trails
Okay.
into the fold. I mean, so
Yeah.
with the official, because I mean, right now, there's really very little noticeable difference between the two. So we'll need to dig a little bit deeper on the social trails if there's certain links that we maybe do want to see revegetated back to native, or if we want to do a little bit more improvement, because there's like 1 or 2 that are pretty steep. They might need a little bit more of a switchback or something added if we want to really encourage people to use it. But in general, I mean, just cleanup work, some erosion control, some, just, it's very,
So
removing some of the larger rocks in the middle of the trail, that type of stuff. So we have an opportunity. I don't want to see this project necessarily rushed, but we do have an opportunity to do this as the town's National Day of Service, is that what it's called? Which is like around mid-September. And if we did that, then we'd probably get a little bit more support with staff promoting it. There's some funds available because of that day. So traditionally, they've been doing that National Day of Service, I think, with some of the parks like Asti Park, cleanup, that type of thing. But Patrick, thinks that this could be a good project for that. It's probably a little bit sooner than maybe we wanted to do, but we could possibly do this as a fall cleanup and maybe schedule another one for spring. But that's, what want to have the discussion for this evening. I mean, do we want to take the opportunity to do that? Do we want to say, no, we need more time to plan this?
I'm just concerned about timeline. Volunteering for the last couple of trail cleanups, there's just getting the people there and letting them go with a shovel and a rake and cleaning up things is one thing, but knowing where to go and what to do is what you really need to understand before you show up. So do we have enough time between now and then to go out and walk the trail and understand, like, hey, this is an area where I need somebody to, clean out the rocks, and here's an area I need to rake it down so it's nice and smooth and transition. Here I need some infill, all those kind of things that need to be prepped and understood fully. And, you can't just say, well, this is a, social trail that, just clean it out, but this is a social trail that it's too steep and I want to switch back and try and put a log on each side and revegetate that. All those things need to be resolved before you have a mass of people trying to do the work. I mean, at the bike park, when I did the volunteer effort there, it seemed like there was a lot of us out there. You were there, and you're all out there doing it, and there's a couple people that really knew how to change the slopes and the contours. And once you had that direction, it was a lot easier to understand, well, let's just add more here, and it helps with the rolling hills of the bike park, And so those type of things, it seems to me that mid-September is right around the corner.
Mm-hmm.
And do we have enough time in the next 3 to 4 weeks to really outline a good strategized attack on what to do for that.
I think the one thing here is that this is a lot bigger area,
Right.
a lot more, length of trail than like the bike park, than
Agreed.
probably any of the projects that the town has done as volunteer cleanups so far. So in my mind, I think this is not going to be a one-time effort. I mean, this probably will require a series of volunteer days. So, to do one this fall, maybe focus that on the more official loop that's up there. But for sure, I think, even if it's just myself, but anyone else that wants to volunteer to go out with staff beforehand and try to narrow down some of the places that need to be worked on. There is a resident that lives up there. He had sent when we had the public engagement, he had sent like a whole kind of like his recommendation of and he had photos and everything, I think, of things that he thought needed to be done. And I believe he's I think Patrick said he is some type of engineer, and he is a member of the Boulder Mountain Bike Alliance. So if we could get someone like that to volunteer some time, probably knows a little bit more like what you're saying, a little bit more about the actual engineering of some of these trails. So if we get someone like that on board to maybe do the same thing, go out there beforehand as well as be there the day of, to kind of narrow down some of the things that we should really be focusing on, I think that would be good. But yeah, I mean, it's a tight schedule, but it is an opportunity that we have in front of us. So I think tonight we need to decide, do we want to take staff up on that opportunity or not? And then if we do, yeah, it'll be a quick turnaround, but we'll at least work with staff to focus somewhere on Coyote Ridge, and then maybe we'll have a little bit more time to talk about a second day in the spring.
It's 4 weeks from Sunday, right? National Day Service, September 11th.
They try, I think they try to do it as close to September
It's a Sunday.
11th as
It's a Sunday this
possible.
year, so.
I don't know that the town has always done it on the day of service, but they try to do it as close as
Do you know when it
possible.
is?
Typically, it falls the week after Chili Fest, which is September 10th.
Okay.
Chili Fest is September 10th,
Yes.
so it would be the week after.
Okay.
All right.
17th, 18th.
I won't actually be here that weekend. Well, if it's Sunday, I'll be
It's
here.
still before our next meeting, so.
It's before the next meeting, yeah. But I think that's what we really need to decide tonight is if we want to seize this opportunity or say, no, it's too fast. We want to plan more. We'll pass on the day of service. We'll try to schedule it for October if we think that the weather will hold. That's what we need to decide. Anyone have a real opinion either way?
So it's the 18th, you think?
10th, 17th.
17th, 18th, Saturday, Sunday, is it just one day deal, or is it?
It would be a one day. I don't know if it would be Saturday or Sunday.
That's what you gotta look into. You gotta look into, is it gonna be a Sunday or is it gonna be a Saturday?
Yeah, if it's
If it's
Sunday.
a Saturday, it'd be more convenient for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because Sunday's more of a family day, church day, going to church.
True,
home Broncos game.
but
Sorry.
but Saturday,
Yeah.
but Saturday
I'm out.
also gets more of the sports conflicts for families.
Yeah.
So it's a toss up.
It is a toss.
Is the Broncos a day game or an evening game?
3 o'clock.
Yeah,
What's at 3 o'clock?
3 o'clock Broncos.
A Broncos
Oh.
game.
2:30.
No, 2:30, sorry. 2:30.
2:30.
Yeah. And sorry, I have season tickets, so I do have it in my phone, so I know when the
totally
games are.
understand. Yeah.
Well, we can figure that. We can figure out whether it's what day. I mean,
What time.
that'll be a staff decision as to what day it is. But
No matter what, I mean, volunteer opportunities, if there's a big push and a national
Yeah.
day, that it's all about volunteering. I think it's something we want to try and capitalize on because, you know, being in some of the volunteer opportunities, you know, it's always hard to get people out there. So if there's a, you know, more verbal or vocal presence and understanding of it, I think it's a way to capture more people. We just have to stay ahead of it and, you know, not have people show up and go, what do you want me to do? I'm standing here. You got a shovel? You got a rake? What do you want?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, so that's my concern, is that we just have to get out ahead of them. And if we feel we can do that, I think it's well worth it to try and capitalize on that opportunity with more volunteers. And, you know, knowing that there's lots to do and it's a long trail, it's not that easy to just fix it up in a day, you know, but just knowing where to put the people.
Well, and that's also all the more reason to try to take the opportunity to have more people there, is because we can spread them over a greater area. And then also, if we do get enough of a turnout with the help of the day of service, then we have a larger group to retarget in the spring if we do another cleanup.
But you do have a valid point, Peter, that if we get with town staff and hit the hard areas first, the most areas that need the most work done first, and have like a set priority list that needs to be done. We go in there, 5-6 guys go to group area 1, 5-6 guys go to area 2, get them done in one day, wait till spring, like you said, then go back and touch them up, and then go back to your next spots, 3, 4, 5,
Yeah.
6, or however long the list is, you know?
Yeah.
I think that's the number one priority, is if we, as a board, get with town staff to say what is the most important for public safety, that's where we gotta go from, you know?
Yeah, and I'll make sure I'll get out there with staff, you know, walk it, see what we think we should focus on, and try to have it a little bit more organized than like the bike park cleanup. I don't know how well was the last volunteer day organized. Was that a little bit better than the bike park?
It was better, and there was probably 10 people there, you know, and I mean, it works well. It's just, you know, the people that show up when you get there, knowing what to do is always the key. So
Yeah.
you have all the people, and you just need somebody to be able to tell them, you go down and rake this area, and you cut a ridge here and move this or do that. You need to be able to instruct them on what to do.
Yeah.
Because people are more than willing to, you know, if they show up, they're more than willing to do the work. It's just,
You just
they
gotta-
need help.
They need to know
Instruction,
what.
proper
They need
They need
instruction.
a list of, like you said, a list of 5
Priorities.
places to go, and these are the 5 things you need to do at that location.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
are you guys going to wait for town staff to choose the day, or are you
Well,
saying?
that,
What I mean by staff is that we get with Patrick, we get with Matt Rarick. Sorry, Peter, but that's what, when you say staff, what I think is like town employees would say, hey,
Yeah.
let's go walk this over, let's see what we need to do to fix this. Then, when we have our national day, have priorities 1 and 2, they go hammer it out, and that's it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean by town staff as town board staff, I'm talking town staff as like Patrick,
Right.
Allison.
and then as far as
Well,
the,
but you're
as far
gonna
as the
choose the
actual
volunteer
day,
Yeah.
I think that's going to require more than us to choose.
Oh, absolutely.
But you're saying you're going to choose between Saturday or Sunday?
Well, we could make a recommendation.
I would.
But
I would
I
definitely
don't
choose one of the
know
days.
whether staff has a preference from, you know, history on turnout or anything as to whether Saturday or Sunday is better.
If the last time you had 10, that sounds really low to me. Because we've done the day of service before with the scouts, and we had 30, 40, 50 people there.
Well, but you
Actually,
see,
one
that
time-
was-
the first day we
These
did
are
it,
just
first time
volunteer
we
that
did
was-
60.
cleanups.
That wasn't a day of service. That was just a kind of
That
more
was a Saturday
last
morning
minute.
volunteer
Oh,
trail
okay.
cleanup.
You know,
So
and
I
that's our issue, is the last couple like cleanup efforts that the town has done.
Okay.
I think in
Victorian
general, we
volunteer.
kind of feel like we're too rushed. There wasn't enough publicity done
Yeah.
to get turnout. And so the bike park probably had less than 10 people. And then this last one that a week or so ago was, Corey's saying, was about 10 people. So if we can capitalize on the day of service getting a little bit more recognition, hopefully we would get more like 30. And I actually said the same thing to Patrick this afternoon was if we could somehow get like the scouts
Yes.
involved, some type of larger group. If I don't know what other groups are in town that we could target, but if there are some groups that we could get involved, they're gonna bring with them a set number of people.
That's right.
So that would be great.
I think there's some opportunities, but I guess looking at, if it's between those 2 days, that Saturday, Sunday, I would definitely choose the Saturday, and I'd choose it now, and then advertise it now. Give the scouts, 4 weeks to react and get it set up, because they're going to need that. If you go less than 2, they're not going to be able to pull it together.
Okay.
But Sunday, I agree. If there's a Broncos game, you're shot after 12 o'clock.
But what do we think is really the more of an obstacle, the Broncos game or kids like soccer and baseball or whatever else is going on that's almost always on Saturdays?
I think, and I've learned this from just a lot of experience working with our nonprofit, that you've got to take a day and just say, we're going to do it this day. We realize we're not going to make everybody happy. We're not going to get 100% of them there. So all those, if you're going to do it first thing in the morning from like 8 to 12, all those folks that have soccer games and football games in the morning aren't going to be there. But you're going to gain all the ones that maybe have them in the afternoon. Or maybe you take the afternoon and not worry about the morning. But I would just stick with it, put a date, because you're going to get people. Scouts, they're probably not playing football. They're probably not playing some of those other sports. They're scouts.
True.
But for our club, our guys aren't playing ball right now, so I would definitely have the Monarch Rugby Club and let them know about it, because they're looking for volunteer opportunities. So I think that would be a good group to get out there and engaged. So I think you'll get the numbers, I really do, but you got to do it now. I would plan it now.
Okay. Well, what does everyone think on the day? Just show of hands. Who thinks Saturday? Who thinks Sunday? Who thinks Saturday?
I think Saturday.
Okay.
I think Saturday, just because the Broncos game is
Sunday.
and church and things like that take away on Sunday.
Okay.
But I know Saturday, having kids in soccer, I don't know if I'll be able to make it, just because I don't know the schedule yet.
Yeah, and I know I won't be there Saturday. I could be there Sunday. So if we do choose Saturday, and it is going to be that, what is it, 17th we said?
17th.
We do need someone else on PROSTAC to probably volunteer to be. I'll work with Patrick, leading up to it and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But if we could get someone else to promise that they're going to be there as our representative, that would be good.
Can I make one more suggestion? You mentioned it already, that you don't know what the weather's going to be like. So I would have a contingency plan that maybe it's 2 weeks after that, so you can announce that at the same time. If there's poor weather, then we're going to cancel that day, but then we're going to do it on the 31st or the 1st of October.
And I'll make sure to talk with Patrick about that as well.
Yeah.
If we could have a designated alternate date.
Yeah. Good.
Okay.
And currently, that date hasn't been determined. I looked on the volunteer website, and there was no information unless there's some kind of internal decision that's already been made.
Okay. So I don't know that we need to capture this as a motion, but what we should capture in the meeting notes is that that PROSTAC would like to take the opportunity to have the National Day of Service be the cleanup of Coyote Ridge Trail System, and that our preference would be that the cleanup day be a Saturday. Do you want to say morning or afternoon? Or just Saturday?
Can you do both? If
Well,
you-
that's
to satisfy both groups, the people who are busy in the morning.
that's the thing it's probably going to be more than a 2-hour type cleanup. So do we do it like you said, like kind of clear cut, like 8 to 12, or do we try to overlap it, like say 10 to 2, and then maybe we get people that show up for the first 2 hours, and then people that show up for the second 2 hours, not the whole 4. I don't expect anyone to show up for the whole 4 hours.
I got a couple different opinions on the morning or afternoon, just from me making my kids go out and do it, and it's a great opportunity for the kids to learn, volunteer. But if they have a game in the afternoon, I'm not going to push them to go out and spend 3 hours out in the sun in the morning. But yet on the other hand, the morning is a nice cool time. If you get there between 8 and 10, it's nice and cool and it's not the heat of the
Good
day.
point.
So you get which one do you want? You're going to be in the heat of the day, or you're going to get the people that are saying, well, I got sports in the morning, or I got sports right after it, and I don't want to wear the kid out, or I don't want to, myself. I'd go out and do it whether my kids have the game in the afternoon and I'm going to go do it myself, but I'm trying to get the kids to be more involved as well. So just a few different aspects of that, and you could argue either way whether it's better in the morning or afternoon.
Yeah.
You just got to pick one and go with it. And
I agree.
Make it work.
It's going to be
for whoever's
just putting the effort in place. We're
Right.
better off than not doing anything at all. So
Right.
if you get a dozen people there because it's not convenient for most, so what? That's okay. We're doing a volunteer effort.
Right.
You're getting something done. I wouldn't kill too many brain cells over it.
So, I mean, I think we probably put our preference as
I'm
being
analyzing
a
my own
Saturday morning.
availability.
And then, obviously, we'll let staff actually decide what the date and time is going to be based on, the parameters of the day of service and their professional opinion. But
I just think it's a great opportunity to try and get more volunteers with the day of service and get that action done, because we've been talking about that it's a trail that needs some maintenance. And it's one of the key things that we've talked about even on other trails that, we talk about all the new trails, but really the maintenance on some of the existing trails is another step. That just making sure that there isn't the washout or the rough trails, that it's still a good, clean trail. So.
okay.
Chris, do you think 5 weeks, do you think giving the Scouts and possibly Monarch Rugby 4 weeks notice is enough time to,
Yeah.
you said 2 weeks is kind of pushing it?
Yeah.
So if PROSTAC, as us committee members, meet with Patrick in the next week, that should give enough cushion time, barrier time for everything
the
to come
word
together,
out.
kind of, come
think so.
together instead of
I
being
think,
rushed
yeah.
within the 2 weeks notice, like you said, then it's just.
Yeah, I think if it's
circus.
any longer than that out, like 6 weeks, I think it's too far out. But
Yeah.
when you get into 2 weeks ahead,
We're at 5 weeks coming this Saturday.
I think that's good, yeah.
And I think staff is going to move on it pretty quickly.
Okay.
I mean, they have Tori who focuses on
Yeah,
the
Tori-
volunteer
Tori will-
work. So, I mean, I think as soon as, however they need to, move
Yeah.
forward with this being the project for day of service, I mean, once that decision's made, they'll move with it quickly.
Now, that group that is, there's a big group we all know about that's very pro off-leash dog. I would imagine that they would be a part of this, yes?
Well, I mean,
That's very good.
So, all right, so in the public engagement we had, where that group was very present, we left that meeting basically with the opinion of the group being that no major changes be made to this area. That, that it be left open to all users, but that some improvements are made to correct erosion, just trail maintenance.
Yeah.
So that's all we're really talking about doing at this point. So in that regard, yes, I think if we can target getting some of those folks to help, that would be great. At the same time, some of those folks are out there talking about they want this area, they're closed off, or dedicated to off-leash dogs. That goes against what they said in the public engagement. They're limiting users if that's done.
Right.
But again, I don't think this committee's place to get involved until the board tells us to get involved.
Okay.
So for right now, we're going to move forward with the feedback that we got out of that meeting. And if, we can certainly, rely on some help from those people if they want to.
But it's definitely a group we should ask or let them know that we're doing the
Yeah.
maintenance
Yeah.
and trying to clean it up. And
But we're not doing anything we're not changing anything, let's put it that way. All we're doing is clean up general maintenance
Yeah.
to existing trails. So I don't see how this could offend anyone, including the off-leash
agree.
dog group.
Yeah.
So. All right. So if we're settled on on that, so I'll make sure to get with staff, and if anyone else wants to be involved with, walking the trail and trying to determine some of the areas that need work, let me know.
Please, just shoot me an email. I live right up the road, so I mean, I could be there in like 3 minutes.
Okay.
And also, I was up there Coyote Ridge, what's today? Today's Wednesday? I was up there Monday. I did kill a couple snakes, a couple rattlers up there with the shovel. When I go
Yeah.
walking up there, I take the shovel.
Yeah, they're up there, for sure.
So,
I
stay
run
clear.
all the time.
Stay clear.
Yeah.
Quick step.
Yeah, right.
I'm too fat to make a quick step. I'm sorry.
All right, so moving on to item 3, options for trail connection at Davidson Mesa Underpass. Allison, can you summarize what the discussion that I guess Louisville's continuing to have with the county?
Currently, the town has no discussion on the Marshall alignment options and to open space, and that Louisville has been having discussions with Boulder County, and we've just been waiting to see what the status is of discussions.
Yeah. Okay. I think that even despite what Louisville and the county might decide, anything they're going to do is probably going to be going west of Superior. It doesn't touch the town's property. And so it's not really going to serve the residents of Superior directly. I mean, indirectly, yes, maybe it would. But,
Going east is the Dr. Cog connection?
Well, yeah, so I think that our discussion this evening should focus on anything dealing with going east and not anything that's going west. Because let's let Louisville and the county, who really have the property going west, because Louisville does have property because of their water treatment plant there, let them continue to discuss that. Let us discuss options that would actually get our residents safely across Marshall and to the underpass. So, I mean, I have an idea of, which is something that we've talked about before, but I'd like to hear if anyone else has any thoughts.
Well,
Go ahead. Always.
no, I'm just throwing out, I mean, right now, as it stands, I mean, this is the only map I see. It crosses 36 and pretty much hits Marshall and stops.
Mm-hmm.
And at this point in time, the Dr. Cog is the connection from that point on the southern side of 36 back to the RTD.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And so that's the plan currently as it sits. But
Correct.
there's no resolution of crossing or how to get across Marshall. And at this point in time, there's no trail on the southern side of Marshall.
Correct. So right now, if you were to come from the Louisville side and go under,
It just stops.
you would hit the road, and then you would have to, I mean, assuming you're on a bike, you would just be biking
Roll
on
onto
the shoulder
on-shoulder bike.
until you get down to, I forget what is it, 88th? What's
Yeah,
the
where you can
dirt?
cross
What's the dirt
the dirt
road
road
that
down there.
goes out
70,
there
oh, I'm sorry.
What do you mean?
Yeah, the other way.
Going north?
to the old dump?
Way
Into
way out
That's
over
South
here.
66th Street. That's South 66.
66.
So, the
So you would take Marshall until you hit that, and then you can get on the trails
Yes.
from there. That's what residents of Louisville would be doing if they came under the underpass now.
But, okay. So I guess I'm trying to clarify just our discussion, because if the Dr. Cog Trail is coming in from the east and we don't want to discuss the west, I mean, our connectivity, my biggest concern is making sure it's safe. And right now, you come in, you stop at the road, and there's a little sign, and you're going onto the shoulder, or there's nowhere else to go.
Well, so right now, if you're a resident of Superior, you're coming from within the town limits. In order for you to safely get across Marshall,
Right.
you're essentially crossing at like
76.
Panda Express or somewhere where there's a light, and you're going into the RTD
Right.
area, and you would be getting the future Dr. Cog Trail up.
Right.
If you live in original town or
Yeah, anywhere over here.
western part of original town, the Cold Creek Crossing development, anything around there, you would actually be doing kind of like a loop away
Right.
to the east and then going back west. So we previously had talked about, well, what if you had a crossing or a traffic light or something at Marshall and 76?
Right. Right. I recall that. Yeah.
So my idea of, and I'd like to see if everyone agrees, is to get the ball rolling. I mean, really, this is going to kick to the board and Public Works, I think, in the long run.
Right.
Is recommend that there be a crossing, possibly with a traffic light, at Marshall and 76 that would have a short little trail connection to the Dr. Cog Trail, and then a bike lane striped on 76. Down, you know, the whole length of 76.
Right.
And that way, if you live in original town, you live in Sagamore, you live in Cold Creek Crossing, whatever, you could basically get all the way from Cold Creek Drive Dirt Road.
Right.
You could get from the future trail connection that's going to come out of Cold Creek Crossing into into the trail network. You could get from those points north along 76, safely cross Marshall, and then have access to the underpass.
Okay.
Has anyone ever brought up putting a roundabout there, or can you do that there?
That's
Well,
state highway.
it's CDOT.
That's
so
state highway, that's.
Whatever,
not town
whatever we
roads.
suggest is gonna end up, the board's gonna have to take it, the town's gonna have to take it to CDOT.
That's a state
So
highway.
it's still a state highway there? it's
Still
state
state highway. So as you hit the top of the hill, going past the state building, that's where the town of Superior limit ends,
Right.
where we're zone and annex. So past the Dr. Cog Trail is out of our hands. And for us to make a recommendation of a traffic light or a pedestrian crosswalk, like a state yield sign like they have down there on Cherry Street, down there by the Esterns and Old Town Louisville, that's a great idea. Let's pitch that to them. But what I was thinking is more of like, put a bridge in, or, you know, put a pedestrian undercross like they just did.
They've already looked at, the staff has already looked at an underpass. It's gonna cost like $1 million
It's,
to put an underpass.
what's $1 million worth on somebody's life getting hit out in the middle of an intersection
Well, but-
of a light or a crosswalk? You can't put a dollar bill on somebody's life, can you, Peter?
No,
you're
but,
starting-
but what I'm saying is
That's what you gotta look at.
A
what you
safe,
gotta
a
look at. Let's
safe
be smarter.
alternative to an underpass would be some type of crosswalk or traffic light. Yes, you're never gonna eliminate
Traffic light
the,
Bolton.
you're never gonna
That's
eliminate
it.
the risk of a intersection.
Then you gotta, if you do put a traffic light there, you gotta have a traffic study, because on that on Colorado 170, the speed limit is 50 miles an hour around that curve.
Yeah.
It's 50. And if you put an intersection or a light there, regardless if you're a big truck, a snow truck, or any type of vehicle, to slam on the brakes because somebody's going to walk out in front of you because it's a state law, because a pedestrian has the right of way, which we do, and you slam on the brakes, you're going to hit somebody and kill them. So why not make an underpass and spend $1 million
Well-
and do it?
Do we know McCaslin, when they put in the crossing to the ridge? Is that where they put it in?
Yeah.
That passing, I mean, that's
It's pretty.
45
It's
mile
45.
per
it's
hour.
45, but you know, I mean, it's
On a
very
slope
similar.
and a bend.
That's right. And
It's
it's
very
kind of
similar.
very similar. And if you think about it, in the wintertime, that's a very slick road because all the water drains
drains all
down
across
and
there.
shoots across down there to the bottom. And it's really, it really is tricky.
Yeah.
It's nasty.
Well, I'm
it's
just,
a
but-
nasty
you know,
road.
a comparable location, a comparable
Absolutely.
solution
Yeah.
to what has been done in the.
And to tell you the truth, I'm kind of shocked at CDOT. They did put that trail crossing underneath US 36 for the Davidson Mesa Trail. And I don't know why they didn't think about putting in another one right there while they were there. They were right there. Why didn't they do it?
Yeah.
That's the most
Well,
stupid asinine thing I've
so-
ever seen in my entire life.
Because it wasn't part of
You know,
36.
maybe a
Redevelopment.
traffic light or a, a surface crossing is not the best solution, but it could get the discussion started
Of course.
as to,
Discussion
this
started.
is what, the town of Superior is very concerned about a safe crossing.
Because you're
This
actually.
this is a suggestion we have. CDOT could come back and say, no, they could come back and say, we need to study it. They could come back and say an underpass, and then you have the ammunition to go to them and say, well, you're gonna chip in on the cost of an underpass.
The other key of the crossing is if you put it at 76, you're bringing it back into town a little bit more versus out on that curve. And you're also, I believe, all the traffic starts slowing down right there anyway because of the turns to Costco and the turn to 76.
It drops to 35 miles an hour at 76. So it de-escalates from 50, or 50, it used to be 55.
Even more reason to put a crosswalk at 76.
Absolutely, but I mean, you put it there, you run that Dr. Cobb trail all the way down, right next to US 36 like it already is planned, right?
Right.
Like they already have it. I mean, you think about if you dump it across there, is the state gonna wanna look at putting in a median? Kind of like what we have right here and by Costco. Put a median in. And the deal is that you start limitation, you start adding stuff and making crosswalks like that, you gotta start thinking like,
Yeah.
is that the proper place to put it? We want everything to go to Costco right there, of course we do, because that's the back, Costco, Target, the bike paths, we're gonna.
Just from
add
a
bike
connection
lane.
point, it's the one critical connection point coming out of the town of Superior. That there is no other trails to the west
Yeah.
yet, and therefore it's the one key, kind of culmination of everything coming together at that point, and then it continues out of the Dr. Cog, and then, the question really is, to the west isn't our control, but wherever they move the trail and the connection to the Boulder County open space, maybe you don't need the crossing there at 76 if they have another crossing out further, but that still limits the town of Superior residents from getting to that trail.
Exactly.
So getting that
That's-
connection at
that's the ammunition that you
76,
have, of course
Yeah.
it is.
and then they go out further to the west, and they still put an underpass further to the west.
Well, yeah, because
They
if,
get that connection to the open space.
say they do put some type of crossing further to the west, whether it be underpass, surface crossing, you still have the issue of Superior residents, particularly original town residents, that would be coming off of 76. They still need to cross, So, that's gonna be, even if they want to get, because then we would be talking about, well, then you have to have some type of trail on the south side of Marshall to get to that underpass. Well, that's not our property. Where are we gonna put a trail?
Yeah.
So,
That's something that's more, because that's city and county of Boulder. One side, I do believe, as you're going on 70, as you're going on Colorado 170, after it turns 76, past
I think it's
76,
private.
go past the bend where the Dr. Cog Trail underpass is, right past the guy up there on top, it hits city of Boulder open space too. So the city of Boulder open space is on the north side, county of Boulder open space on the south side. So that's something, we gotta look at too. Is that, you gotta see if the city of Boulder wants to chip in on this. Because it's more of a community, it's more of a county community trail more than the town of Superior.
Chris, do you recall who chipped in on the underpass? Us, Louisville, and anyone else?
CDOT. I think it was CDOT. Was it CDOT?
Or was it county?
The overpass right here?
The underpass?
The underpass.
Oh, no, I think it was Boulder County.
So you think it was three ways?
It was
Boulder-
definitely three ways,
So
yep.
you think it was Boulder County? So,
Yeah.
Having the three parties who paid for the underpass ultimately should be involved in any type of crossing. It shouldn't.
Absolutely.
It shouldn't be solely ride on Superior, nor should
No.
it solely ride on like Louisville or the county. We all chipped in on the underpass. We should all be chipping in. But that's beyond us. But all I'm suggesting is this has been a concern of ours from day one.
Of course.
So any type of suggestion, recommendation that we can make that can get the ball rolling to say, this is not forgotten. Here's a suggestion.
Do we know when
Get
the
it,
Dr.
get it
Cog-
taken further forward for feedback. That's all I think we can do at this point.
I would say that, do we know when the Dr. Cog trail goes in, or is approximately, whatever
When
we
is
recommend,
that?
it
Next
should tie
year.
to the Dr. Cog completion? That
Absolutely.
when Dr.
I
Cog
agree.
is complete, there should be a connectivity,
Of
whether
course.
it's the connectivity at 76 with a light, or with a button that they push for the flashing light.
It's,
the
it's,
the
it's
walkway.
budgeted for next year, I believe. I don't know what the timeline is. I would assume
But it should be
spring.
put on the radar to be coordinated with that, because as soon as that trail is there, as you stated, anyone coming out of Old Town or in that area, you know, without walking the entire loop, which we all know, people walk a straight line, they're gonna head right across there, and there's gonna be crossing at 76, whether we address it now, or people are crossing and there's an issue
There's
later.
probably crossing, a cross Marshall from the underpass right now. as we
Well, yeah,
speak.
now that the trail, the
Yeah.
connectivity is there, even though it's walking on the side of the road.
So, the one other thing that we can kind of, an existing effort that we could also kind of tie this to, if we wanted to, is there's the wayfinding signage project that's kind of stalled. And the town does actually have some money, a little bit of money put towards it. Once the Dr. Cog trail goes in, once the trail that's under construction now behind the liquor store is completed, it's gonna start having these points of entry into the town that we would like to see some direction to people of you know, this
Absolutely.
park is that way, or town center is that way,
Firehouse
whatever.
is right there.
And so if we could, you know, if we could kind of roll the wayfinding signage back into this too, it's like, well, people coming out of Davis and Mesa underpass, you know, need some direction from that point. This is a direction of saying, look, you can cross here at 76, you can get to original town, you can get to Founders Park, you can get to this trail, and then, you know, continue along Dr. Cog, you get to RTD, you get to town center. It could start the ball rolling on the wayfinding signage project as well, I think.
Mhm. So what do we need to recommend, propose?
Well, I mean, I would say that PROSTAC recommends that that the town begin to explore a surface crossing possible traffic signal at 76th and Marshall with a connection to Dr. Cog, and then a bike lane on 76, the length of 76, which will allow safe travel to and from Davis and Mesa underpass. That would be my recommendation. Do I have a second on that? Discussion?
My only discussion would be is, you know, and it's really thinking more about the connectivity on 76 than pedestrian access. Because, you know, having a bike lane on 76 accounts for some traffic, but the pedestrian traffic, been out there a few times, I drive down the road, I just can't think of sidewalk access or pedestrian access.
There's sidewalk access on the east side, I believe, the behind Target.
Yeah, that's right, okay.
And I mean, it's not,
Okay.
I don't think it's
Okay.
necessarily running directly parallel to the curb, but it's
But
there.
it's there, it's there,
It
that's
shoots
right.
and it jogs.
Yeah.
It shoots and it jogs.
Yeah, on the west side of it.
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
on the west side of the road, no. I mean,
Okay.
there's not even curb and gutter, right, on the west side?
Right, that's why I was
There's
trying
curb
to.
and gutter there.
Depends.
Is there?
In front of the storage
Not the
unit, of
whole
course
way.
there is.
In front of the storage unit,
Yeah.
but the whole length?
Yeah, in front, what the heck?
Once it transitions.
What's
Okay.
the storage units, from the storage unit right there
So-
where that dirt road is, going south is all curb and gutter. But from right there in front of that guy's house, that's still annexed in the county, that ain't annexed in the town.
So that was my only concern, is just pedestrians, traffic still having that same opportunity along that area and the bike path. Because you're tying the bike path to the access across the Marshall Road.
Yeah.
I'd like to go back and dig through the stuff we've already done, because I know we've already sent something to the board concerning safety crossings.
I think it's
That's the
been
big
mentioned
issue.
in a number of things, whether or not we specifically had a sole recommendation on this might have been in
It was definitely. we
combined
definitely had
with
something,
We
yeah.
had-
other trail recommendations and so forth, but
I thought a lot of the discussion previously was that something needed to be addressed.
Yeah.
And that we needed to be looked at. And I don't know if we ever made a recommendation for a crossing at 76. I know we talked about
We
it, but
definitely
I don't
put wording
remember.
together, because I remember Sandy discussing it.
Okay.
I can remember her putting the points about the safety, and we wanted, that was our key.
Yeah, I just couldn't
It was
remember
a
where.
bullet point on something.
Something,
I
yeah.
can't remember if
I got
it was a definitive recommendation or not.
For discussion on this, I got a question. Chris, since that is a state highway, is the town staff held liable for a traffic study? Does the town have to pay for that, or is that something that we have to ask CDOT to pay for a traffic study at South 76 and Colorado 170 for a traffic, for a crosswalk? How is that?
Pretty certain that we'd be responsible for it, just like, I believe, aren't we responsible for plowing it too? or
No, we're not. We are supposed to be off that road. That is from 76 and Marshall Road, our plow comes up, we go one block, turn into the building, we get our material, and we come back out. We are not supposed to touch state highway at all with our plows.
Yeah, I guess I
Our blade
wouldn't know
cannot touch the ground, regardless how
100%
deep the snow
certainty.
is.
But my assumption is that if we want to make some changes there, we're going to have to show them the reasons why, and we would probably be
Of course.
responsible for that, I'm sure.
I mean, that's something, maybe that's something we gotta ask Public Works and Mr. Magley and Alex Arnello, our Public Works Director, to find out about a traffic study. Who is held liable and accountable for a traffic study? Is the town gonna have to pay for it, or is state gonna do the traffic study on that? Regardless if we're annexed into the town or not, it's still a state highway.
I think that,
But doesn't-
PROSTAC has its concerns that we would make this recommendation. But
I-
ultimately, I think this would move forward to, there's a traffic and safety commission, correct?
Yes.
So
I
there,
was gonna
it would move
suggest that-
forward the traffic and safety and public works. It really, it would kind of leave the hands of PROSTAC, I would think, at some point. Because budget-wise, this would probably not be a parks project.
Of course, absolutely. So let's make an amendment, or finish out what you're saying, sorry. I'm
Okay.
just flustered
Well,
right now.
so
I'm confused. I'm just flustered right
my
now.
motion has a second. All in favor?
Aye.
No problem.
So
Back on the agenda.
I'll present this in public comment at a board meeting to make sure that it's heard. And see where it gets picked up from there. But, I don't know, Chris, if you feel strongly one way or the other on this, if you could bring it up in your comments at a board
I
meeting.
have it down here to talk about it, yeah.
Okay.
I know, I'm certain the entire board has the same concerns, because this was discussed a lot when
And
that.
deeply.
And
when
the
that tunnel was
the
going
fact
in.
is that underpass is open now. So we're
What are
kind
we gonna do?
of, we talked about it before the underpass was open. Nothing's happened. Now the underpass is open. The Dr. Cog Trail is going to be going in as early as probably
Yeah.
6 months from now. So I think now's the time to kind of capitalize on it.
Yeah. Agreed.
All right, well, that's actually our agenda for the evening.
Sure.
Allison, do you have the look-aheads to talk about, or do you want to just have Patrick do that as an email to the committee?
We could do that as an email to the committee if everybody agrees.
I wanted to touch base just on parcel 1 and 2, just briefly, if I could.
Well, yes, so that was presented
I know.
to the
It was a great
board.
presentation.
So you were there, Sandy, you were there? So I don't know if either of you want to bring us up to date on.
Well, I just thought it was really good because some of the comments that we had in our discussion, I think were addressed in that presentation with grade and understanding of why certain things were located the way they were. And I thought he did a great job of really focusing on that bridge and why the activity was on each side of the bridge between parcel 1 and 2, and even the amphitheater, or the band shell, if you will, why that was located where it was, and the connectivity to the grading that really tied it together. We were very concerned about, having the proximity to the roadway, but I think in his presentation, it really showed how that grade was dropping off, and it's sitting below the roadway, and it kind of works into the structure, if you will, of the bridge. And those things played into how they positioned it. And we wanted to move it away a lot more so that it was more isolated and it wasn't impacted by noise. But really, when you started looking at that, I think that there was pieces of how close do you get it to McCaslin, and then you're dealing with different traffic. And really that, how it worked with the grade and getting access to it and the connectivity. So there was just certain things like that. Also, we talked a lot about the shelter, which was up in the parking area there, and they viewed that parking area by the pond up in the parcel 1 as more of it's almost like a trailhead, that they felt a lot of people would park there and go from there. And it wasn't really necessarily a shelter for the park, it was more of just a restroom. And that's why it's really tied to the parking area right along where the cars and the traffic was, instead of being a shelter out in the space that people could utilize as a park, picnic area. So there was a few things like that resonated with me as he presented it, that we had talked about, like, why is that shelter so isolated by the cars and not integrated? So little things like that, that I wanted to bring up since going there.
Yeah, I still have to watch it myself. So, and I guess that would be a good suggestion for anyone else if you have time to watch that work session where it's presented. Because I would actually question, I mean, if you're going to have that as your more of a restroom, that doesn't necessarily mean they couldn't still have a shelter actually in the park.
Right, but that means now we're talking two structures, or is it a shelter and restroom? But it sounded like it's just a shelter, just a restroom.
Well, but I'm saying, I mean, maybe that means that they have just a restroom there, but also add a shelter where we had suggested it be.
Yes, there's that. Always
but I haven't watched, so I don't know what the comments
and
from the
a couple
board
other
were.
things too. We talked about that play structure and losing that connectivity for the kids and things like that.
Mhm.
And in his presentation, he brought up the slide. What's the slide that we're talking about at Fire Park? What's it called?
The embankment slide?
Embankment slide. He brought up the embankment slide image and the potential of the embankment slide being on the parcel 2 side and right past the bridge, and making that more of a play area with the grade and everything, a more interactive area. So there were certain key activities that, it was thought about it, but it wasn't your traditional play area.
Right.
So anyway.
Yeah, I just was going to say, I thought the presentation that he gave to the board, it was very eye-opening for me. And we just saw stuff that we didn't see when we talked about it at PROSTAC. And I really, as it evolved, I'd like to see him come and do the same presentation for us, because it was, his whole plan is that the creek becomes the centerpiece of the park, and that everybody, the children will go there to play and things like that. So it's just, it's a non-traditional design of a park where we're not necessarily looking at play structures and swing sets and things like that. So I don't know, I felt very strongly about what he had put together was very well thought out and very well done. And I know at one point we had talked about, well, we'd want a playground so that when people were playing on the athletic fields, that the children would go to the playground. And his statement was basically, we don't need the playground because the playground exists. It is the creek area, and it's, the different grading in the park, and that really the way they will design out around the creek bed will be, the play area. And so I thought it was, I was very impressed with what he said that night, and I was very pleased by what he said. And I just think it was valuable and that it wouldn't be hurt, it would help for PROSTAC to hear from him also.
Was OSAC were they there when
Yes.
he was presenting?
Well, OSAC wasn't, but Ken was there.
And did he have any opposition to that?
I actually thought Ken was very supportive of the park. Now, they are still very concerned about lights because it's it's a raptor area, and they wanted to make sure in their comments, they said, we want to make sure that the lights are low directed, that, they're not going to mess up this area for what we want it to be, which is sort of natural open space. So I did not hear Ken have any opposition other than really the lighting.
There was in the PROSTAC or OSAC recommendation, I have to see it in front of me, but my recollection was that they were very opposed to having any activity down in the creek. In fact, they were concerned about soccer balls, rugby balls going down into the
Yes,
into the
I
creek and
definitely
people
agree with
going in
that.
and
They
getting
were
that.
concerned about that.
So, I guess I don't
They wanted
understand
lots
why
of-
you'd want to open the creek up for people to go down there and play. And especially if there's going to be wildlife that you're trying to protect, whether it's daytime or nighttime. So, it seems strange to me that is the focal point of the park, is that for people to go in the creek and play.
And to me, he also had some images that tied back to like Pearl Street and Confluence Park and things like that, where it's that kind of natural waterfall area,
Yeah.
the consolidating of the waterfalls in a certain area that allowed the drop and that activity zone of the water. But I think there was also isolation areas where there was meandering little tight trails that allow you to get to the creek, but still maintaining the vegetation, because they wanted to revegetate and keep that natural vegetation in there and not have it all mowed grass and things like that. So there was a balance, and I remember Ken also had a couple comments about just quality of water and things like that, and just understanding movement of the water and how much water is actually moving through, and making sure there was so I don't know, there's a lot of pieces there, but I just wanted to bring it up as a discussion because we've talked about that parcel 1 last month, 1 and 2 a lot, and I thought it was very good to be at the presentation and see it. And some of the things that he brought to the presentation were things that you couldn't do without the software that he had for the SketchUp model. It was very rough, but he was able to fly around and see the 3-dimensional understanding of the park.
Sandy, I agree with you. I think that is a really good idea about making that a focal point. And if you're prepared for that, because if you say, we're not going to allow anybody in this creek, we don't want anyone here because we want to protect it, well, people are going to go in the creek anyway.
Right.
So if you're prepared for that and you manage it knowing that there's going to be people there, then you can protect the beauty of it. And so I think it's great.
Yeah,
I
and I
haven't
think
seen the
that's what he
video,
was
but I
really
will.
saying, is that, we have this, children are naturally drawn to water.
Yeah.
And so we do need to design the park in such a way that we protect what we want to protect
That's
there,
right.
but that we also facilitate people being able to use, go down to the edge of the creek in a safe way.
Yeah.
And so I just, it seemed like he knew what he was talking about, so it seemed very well.
He had all his facts
informed.
all aligned so that he could touch base on, access to the field and how many people could sit out there. And there was even discussions about potentially putting instead of putting the restroom up on top, maybe tucking it down in and, creating a little concession stand and everything for the park over there. So there was a lot of great pieces brought up in the discussion, how
Yeah.
far it all goes and where it all goes.
Yeah, I would
still.
definitely recommend you go out and look at I assume are the work sessions taped?
Yeah.
Okay.
I haven't watched it yet, but I will
Yeah,
before.
definitely go out and watch it, because it did you won't be able to get the full feeling of what he did up on the screen, but
Yeah.
it definitely gave you a new perspective of, I don't know, it made you a little more excited about the park, made it seem a little more
it was
real.
pretty exciting. He was pretty passionate about it. And
Yeah.
that passionate presentation helps you as well. So
Yeah.
So just from another perspective, Impact Sports and the sports stable and all that, they have really big plans. That field is going to be key to their plans, and the hotel once it gets here. I mean, not just hockey. I mean, bringing
Oh, yeah,
on
they have
other
all that.
sports.
Yeah.
So it's, that's going to be nice. And to have a really full-size field that can be used for multiple different sports, it's going to be very beneficial.
But the sports table is not going to have any priority usage of the field, right? I mean, it's just going to fall under, I mean, as it stands right now, it's going to fall under the town's general policy of basically first come, first serve assignment of the field.
Programmed, yeah.
Yeah, but that's what I mean, as far as reserving it and programming.
That's a good
it.
question. I know, I've heard that there was some discussion about, and it could be the same way that they're treating their ice time in the indoor field with us and their meeting space over there, that we'll get an allotment of time. And I think that's kind of the way it's going to work with them too, and the use of the multipurpose field, is that they'll have a certain allotment of time to program it. Yeah.
Okay.
But I think the partners with town, like Broomfield Soccer, are they still a partner with the town? Do you know, Sandy?
Well, I don't
Not-
know if they are with the town,
No,
but
not
they
officially.
definitely, they own huge rights at the sports
I think
stable.
they have a financial interest in it
They
too.
do.
But you have Monarch Youth Football and, all the other programs in town that are user groups, preferred user groups that I'm sure would have priority.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. Expedited trails outreach, we'll see if Patrick sends out in an email anything different than this, but I think that's just referring to what we talked about last month. We'd like to see our outreach for the two trails south of Colton that actually border homes, probably be sometime in November when Loris has brought the design back for those, so we have, more detailed information to take to residents. Actually already did get an email from a resident regarding the one trail that goes from the El Dorado school parcel to McCaslin. So I told them that we'll be holding the public engagement, but expect that we will get some residents with feedback.
Are we also going to
on
outreach
that.
to the few residents off of Pirate Park?
Yeah, that will be the other one we target. And so we'll make sure between now and then to work with OSAC as well to be involved in the outreach, but we're not going to set anything in stone at this point until we know when we have the design back from Loris. The Boulder County taxi meeting, I'm thinking that's referring to, there was a public meeting held in Lafayette a couple weeks ago regarding the fact that on the November ballot is the Boulder County open space tax that exists now. I think it's 0.25%. The ballot issue is looking to split that, make it 1.25% for open space and 1.25% for sustainability measures. It is just an informative meeting, but that'll be a ballot issue. I think it's just bringing us up to speed on that. And then Chili Fest, I'll make sure that staff, if we're going to do the National Day of Service as, the volunteer project for Cloudy Ridge, that's promoted in some significant way at Chili Fest. But, if anyone can make it to be at the booth, I know OSAC is planning to be there, right? And we'll probably be sharing a booth with them again, is my guess. So, if anyone else can be there, I'll plan to be there.
I'll definitely, if it's on Saturday, I'll be there.
Yeah.
Check the soccer schedule.
All right.
Yeah, we should definitely have the outreach stuff on there. If we can get anything up for that. The Coyote thing, the Ridge thing. and the-
If we know enough information to, then we will,
But even if you just have a discussion point that, I talked to them about the July 4th, saying we need something to give people. Because people saw the maps and they thought it was
Yeah.
great. People were like, oh, can we take this? We're like, no, it's our only one. So I asked Patrick for July, after the July 4th, this thing, can you give us something that we can give to these are our projected
Okay.
future trails.
all right, yeah, I'll see if we can have some printouts of the trails that Loris is working on.
I talked to a bunch of parents this morning at the Meet the Teacher thing, and there was so many people that so excited about the park over there. They're like, yeah, I just want to see it open.
Forgot
And
to
I want to
look
know
at
what
it.
it's looking like,
Yeah.
want to know. I'm like, Yeah, I could show you a plan, and, one of the guys was like, oh, I saw the plan at the 4th of July thing, I'm so excited about it, I just want to see it open, though.
Yeah, we had a line for people looking at it.
So,
it
there's-
was-
Is the fencing still up around the park?
I didn't,
Yeah.
I,
I think so, yeah.
I didn't even.
I noticed
glance
cars
at
are
it.
parked on the road over there.
It has to. I mean, they won't want people walking through that construction zone.
Yeah.
Especially with school open and starting.
Although
tomorrow.
that,
They put in
there,
the
you could
sidewalk
get
and
up the
got it.
street, so the fencing's not keeping anybody out because the street's open.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
At least it was when I went
I
by
didn't know if that
2 days
was for
ago.
the workers or general public could get in there. I haven't tried.
Oh, I don't think that they really want the general public in there, but
Well,
I don't think.
I'm just saying,
Yeah.
No, it's a safety
I saw-
issue. It's a safety issue.
Yeah.
Is there a grand opening plan for it? And is there a naming?
Well, then, I believe staff has started on the naming process, some type of contest or whatever that we've done
That should be
the
at the
last
next meeting, I would think.
couple
We're getting
times.
close to having this thing.
But,
When
yeah.
is it supposed to be done? Anybody know?
I thought it was September to October.
October was, but
I
they
think
had.
it was into September
They had
earlier, but they pushed
delays.
it back.
But
so
they
the
had
in
delays
October
with the
sometime.
weather in the
Right.
spring, so I'm not exactly sure when the completion date is, but it was October the last I heard. So, I mean, obviously, they're gonna start running the weather again if they get much later than that.
You never know. That's why they switched all the spring. That's why Superior switched their spring swing to the fall swing. They can never get good weather in the spring.
That's right.
Fall is always good weather.
That's right.
All right, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.
Hey, do you have anybody, you guys interview anybody?
What's that?
Anybody new coming on board? Before anybody else?
Yes, there was a new person. Who was the new one last night? You mean, you were talking on the planning commission? Oh, on the board.
PROSTAC.
Oh.
Have you done it?
Is there really?
You didn't notice the number of dwindling
Well, I thought there was
members?
just some people absent.
Dropping like flies.
No,
Only one, two-term limits.
because
Yeah, that's
Carol
right.
and Aaron were term limited, and Lindsay stepped down, so we have 3 vacancies.
Well, so, did they do any interviews while he was gone?
Is Patrick going to be around tomorrow?
I think
He's
that's
going
what
to be
they're
back tomorrow or
asking
not?
you, but I don't think.
Well, I just got back from vacation.
Water good up there at the park?
But, the rule is that you
Yeah.
can't find people that you allow the term limits to come back.
Well, you would consider.
I got
Because
called
don't think
It's not
it's a-
automatic.
It's in fine grain in the system that you would consider. That's right, I don't know.
Another opportunity.